Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd love to have Sean, Dominique, and Siegfried join me on stage. So, I think this is a really interesting topic. We're a GCC-focused firm. We work here, we work in Saudi, and something that I'm hearing more and more from a lot of our clients, governments, hoteliers in the region is a refocus on Asia. However, I think the starting point on that is, what are we talking about with Asia? It's still reasonably new in the Middle East about who these clients are, what their demand is, and what that looks like, and if we have products and offerings that are going to align with them. So we've put together this panel today. We've got a wealth of expertise to really look at what does Asia bring to the table today, how is that evolving, and what direction we're going. So, I mean, Dominique, perhaps we can start. We've had this conversation several times, and I know that you always get a little bit frustrated when people go Asia, and we put in Philippines, Indonesia, mainland China, India. So, obviously, there's a lot of nuance to that. How do you see it?
It's a big old region. So, hello, I'm Dominique. I'm the Managing Director of Companion Communications. We're a leading travel and dining PR and communications agency based in Asia. And we very much look after the luxury and experiential sector of tourism and dining, so much less mass market. I've been doing this in Asia for almost 20 years now, and we look after a lot of Western brands entering into the Asia market for the first time. And as you say, they never really know what that means, right? Obviously, it's very, very multicultural, multilingual. There's a lot of different types of trends that are ongoing. But there's one key thing that I think Sean and I will agree on, is that the ultra-luxe and ultra-high net worth and high net worth consumer, in particular traveler, there is a specificity to what they're looking for when it comes to travel, destinations, and experiences. So that's very much where we focus.
So I think here in Dubai, we have some very standard groups that we know. We know the Brits, the Russians, the Europeans, an emerging market and into India, but they're all quite static. Aside from perhaps our Saudi market, which is changing rapidly. Sean, is Asia a static market, or are we seeing people become more engaged into new things and new ways as a new region and as a new type of travel?
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Sean Fitzpatrick here from Tala Asia. So definitely things are changing in Asia. We publish in 10 markets, so China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, everywhere, pretty much. That's a kind of a major market, except Korea and Japan, although we're launching in Japan very, very soon. And we can see from the content that we produce and the engagement that we get that Middle East is fast becoming an area of strong interest. In the previous discussion, we heard Aaron mention that number, that fraction, that small number of visitors that we get from this side, and we see that as an opportunity. We see our job at Tala is to create that connection between the two regions. And to kind of kickstart this whole thing, we have included now the Middle East in our annual awards. So we've been doing these awards where we announce the top 100 hotels, restaurants, and bars in Asia Pacific. We have a kind of a best-in-class awards that we give out 26 awards for individuals' achievement. Now we extended that to include the Middle East for the very first time this year. Our award ceremony was just last week, precisely because we knew that our audience in the region are becoming increasingly fascinated. They want to know where to stay and where to eat when they come to this part of the world.
And so what do you think, again, not to make too many big generalizations, but what are they looking for? What is it that's getting that excitement?
I think it's a couple of things. Certainly from a kind of China point of view, there's the Belt and Road Initiative that's happening. Okay, so there's a lot of connection at the business level. A lot more, we have delegations going back and forth, looking at opportunities, development, infrastructure, and so on, sustainable programs. But what that's doing is familiarizing slowly people with this this land and actually the hospitality culture that is incredible here, and so I think that's playing a big part of it. Also, we can see on social media whenever we post something about Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Alula, Qatar, it gets huge engagement. I think people just want to see this place where they're slowly beginning comfortable to look at. They've all been to Europe, they've all been to the US. It's time to look at a new part of the world that's exciting, and it's got this incredible hospitality that I think that they want to experience.
But may I add to that? Sorry, I lost my voice at the Tatler Best Awards in Bangkok last week, so you'll have to forgive me the raspiness. I think that there's actually very little knowledge of this area in Asia. So when Tatler, the engagement is super high because people are fascinated by it and they want to know more. But there's actually very little PR and communications happening in that whole region. And I think that's super interesting for everybody in this room today, because Asian consumers, particularly at the luxury segment, they're far more interested in brands rather than boutique hotels or boutique retreats. They want to feel looked after. They want to know that they are buying into a luxury service. And so if you are a brand, a hospitality brand, now is really the time to be grasping it by the throat and becoming a thought leader there. And kind of pushing people to come here through the brand.
So this is a great segue, I think, to Siegfried. I mean, we were talking a little bit before the panel, and I think what is the mindset of how people are treating, let's say, East Asian tourists? And I think we talked about, there was the time when every time an Emirati or a Saudi went to Europe, there was rubbish dates in their room. Now, the sophistication of our travelers from our region, everybody just gets very exasperated if you have third-rate dates in a hotel room in Munich. So I think for us, maybe in Asia, we back in the day thought of this as tour groups, as people coming through, and with the ultra-high net worth being a specific flavor of that, but also being very calibrated and demanding. So I think we're in a much bigger market. You run a very large portfolio of hotels based out of the PRC. So how is your thinking evolving on that? What do we do to not make it a mess?
Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be with Sean and Dominique, the experts, as well, listening your perspective on that, right? So I'm the hotelier on the panel, happy to represent that industry here. And yes, you mentioned we are the biggest Chinese hotel company, 12,000 hotels. And when I throw these figures in the Middle East, everyone is super surprised that how can they reach that scale in such a short period of time, which shows a lot about the spirit, which shows a lot about the dynamic from the Asian market, but at the same time the capability on the different way of doing things. And we have to understand that, right? If we talk about the European mindset or the Middle Eastern mindset, we should know what to expect when an Asian traveler comes to visit your hotels. When I throw these figures and 288 million loyal members. This is Age Rewards, our loyalty program, which is important, brand related, give confidence to the clients, is important for Asian travelers. You mentioned the importance of brand, important that people from Asia feel comfortable. Now it's difficult to put Asia into one basket, right? Because Asia is half of the world, one of the biggest market that we in the hospitality are focusing. But one of the things is important to know, and for people from Europe, from the Middle East, Asia, it's far more developed from a tech, from a digitalization than what we are in this part of the world, right? We sometimes believe we know we are good, but compared to what our Chinese colleagues are doing, it's a different ballgame, right? And people who have not been in the part of the world, in Asia, in China, in other major cities, we need to learn and understand. And the expectations are different. Right? If I tell you today we open 2,500 hotels per year in China, it's a scale which hardly anyone understands. How can you do that? You have the technology behind, which we do not have yet. And to bring this technology here, it's something which the Chinese or Asian travelers are expecting, a seamless journey from booking to paying to visiting to the mobile phone becomes a hotel lobby, kind of thing, right? So we do not know this, but we should know if we receive travelers from abroad, and we do that actively in every property.
And I think maybe to kind of play on that, it is this interaction. The airlock has often been broken. I think, you know, when you talk to hoteliers in the region, they go, oh, the Chinese approach is backward. It's Alipay, it's WeChat. Why don't they have a credit card? Why doesn't this work? And actually, it's systems that are not yet interoperable. Now, I guess that is the question. Will we see more, let's focus on PRC for this conversation, will we see more engagement of that adaptation as travelers become more excited and inspired and more adventurous outside of China? Or is it going to be something where we really just need to align and catch up on that?
I think any market you look and you want to gain a new market, you need to understand, learn, and adapt. You cannot enforce something on someone to come and visit your place, and especially not, I think, the Asian. They're expecting that you have the services, the facilities in place, the facilitation, right? And you know, we have 12 points on China's expectation that you need to have in every hotel. It goes through the food, it goes to the welcome, it goes to the QR code, who is having everything in Chinese, who goes to the channel, who goes to the payment, who goes to all the services that you need to have. If you don't have it, then don't focus on the Chinese market, it's okay. If you don't want them, it's okay. But if you want them, then please adapt. And it's the same about the Indian market, it's same. It's such a huge market, such a different market. Expectations are there. So you need to learn the market, you need to understand the market, and then have focus sales, blitzes, sales conventions into the different markets where you want to be. It's just not an easy catch like this. You have to work hard, and once they're there, they're loyal to the brand, right? And when they have a loyalty program, they have a loyalty, they stick to that, right? So it's a good point, and we're looking forward to receive much more Chinese. And one thing that I want to mention, and I think we all know, the Chinese in the hospitality industry or in the tourism industry are the biggest spender. 2024, $250 billion was spent from Chinese abroad. Number two is the US, 170 billion. So you see the scale opportunity for the travel industry is huge.
So maybe this is a great time to do the comparative, you know, the German to the Chinese. So yes, there's all this issue about loyalty, but it's also, especially in Greater Asia, Dominique, in the world that you work in, this is an incredibly fast, trend-driven market. Whether you're talking about in China, Xiaohongshu, what's hot yesterday, how do you reconcile that incredibly fast, trend-based market, Hong Kong, Singapore, China, with transitioning to loyalty and sticking with a brand?
I think you have to take a bigger, more macro view at things. So going back to this idea of brand loyalty and building out thought leadership in Asia, I think consistency is key. I think looking at more purpose-led travel is important too. So this idea of opulence and, you know, having the butler and all of this, that's all dead in Asia. You've got to understand, Asian high net worths are some of the most sophisticated travelers in the world. They're, in my opinion, far more sophisticated than Western travelers, European travelers. They understand Michelin food better than anybody. They understand butler service and all of this, you know, high-end gizmo stuff more than anyone. So how do you get them to come to your destinations and your hotels? First and foremost, purpose. Finding a way of connecting your culture to the experience in really meaningful ways. I just took a press trip of very senior Asian editors to Rajasthan last month, and they offered us Chinese food almost every day. Don't do that. Don't do that. We eat Michelin-starred Chinese food in Hong Kong and Singapore all the time. We want to discover what makes your destination tick, be it dates. I don't know this destination, but so there's that. The other massive trend in Asia, and I think the data says that it's grown by 90% per year in terms of spend, is wellness. But the Asians invented wellness, so spa isn't going to cut it either. We're talking holistic retreats, we're talking forest bathing, we're talking all these bits and pieces of creating something that allows these ultra stressed out people to disconnect. And third and foremost, multi-generational travel. This is key to Asia. We travel in large groups. So how do you then fold in your cultural excursions, your wellness retreats with a family aspect? I think Amampuri in Phuket does this incredibly well. Island Shangri-La in Hong Kong as well, where there's this kind of one-stop solution of being able to travel multi-generationally and have the wellness experience as well, and feel like you're part of the culture. So those are really the main trends that's trending at the moment. They're quite macro trends. They've been around for 2 to 3 years. This isn't anything new, but I do think that people miss the boat a bit in Asia. There's this kind of fear of like, oh, these are very kind of different people. They're not. They're ultra sophisticated travelers. They are better traveled than most people in this room, and they know what they like, and they don't need to be reminded that they're from Singapore or Hong Kong. You know, they don't need to have Chinese New Year packets in their room or anything like this.
So it's interesting that those trends are also trends that we're starting to see. Certainly when you're looking, again, let's just take the Saudi market, which again is a market which is becoming very emerging with a growing middle class, upper middle class. Multi-generational travel is huge. And a lot of the inspiration we're seeing in a lot of new properties is really coming from the European market. It's small rooms, they're not connected, it's not suites that run on, everybody's bringing their staff. How does that fit? How does that work? Grandparents, parents, brothers, sisters, children. It's a very different way of traveling, and wellness is starting to start to emerge. So what lessons do you think we can, of what didn't go well in Asia, what lessons can we take for the Middle East on how we build out that multi-generational wellness, sophisticated offering?
Is that for me? Okay, in Asia, there's a very different dynamic than anywhere else in the world, in the sense that multi-generationally, you're often looking at the first generation having made the money, but having come from a relatively less sophisticated background, followed by second and third generation, internationally educated, very, very sophisticated. So really, it's the younger generations, historically, who are making most of the decisions about particularly experiential luxury travel, and then bringing in their own parents and grandparents in. So a focus on that younger millennial and Gen Z approach, I think, is a very clever move if you're really looking to tap into particularly more adventurous destination pieces. Do you agree? I mean, you do a lot of work with Gen Z and the power list and all that in Asia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, cause-driven, brands that have values that align with Gen Z. Sustainability is a really important one. We find that that's kind of like whenever we do surveys, that's kind of top of the list. And wellness is massive. And we were delighted that at our recent awards, the top kind of wellness retreat actually is in the one in Qatar. It's Zulal, and they got voted in by our audience, and we have 700 people globally who vote on our awards, and that got voted in as number one. So I think wellness is massive. And I think maybe the other thing that we're seeing grow at the moment is sports tourism. We know that more and more of our readers are now traveling to attend kind of big ticket events, whether that's F1, and the offering around things like F1 is becoming increasingly kind of elaborate. So for example, the F1 that we just had in Singapore, I hadn't been in 2 years. And in that 2 years, the offering in the Paddock Club has gone from here to here. Like now they had Mirazor, they had Sam Powell, they had Daniel Boulud, and they had like Mosu. Mosu you couldn't get into at any point of the day, by the way. It was just there's lines to get into Mosu. But I was just blown away by how big that sort of show has become, even in the 2 years. So that's kind of an area where we're diving deep into. So we're, as a company, we're traditionally a content creator and events kind of, we throw events and we throw parties and awards things, but we're now moving into that because we can see the opportunity this summer in the new stadium. Hong Kong's got a brand new stadium, by the way. It's pretty amazing. And we did 2 football matches. We did a Liverpool AC Milan, and we did the first North London derby outside of England, which was Arsenal Tottenham. And we just could see the crowd that we have, the reach. They're flying into Hong Kong. They're staying. They're watching the games. So that's one that we're trying to build on now. And we have something happening here, actually in Dubai at the end of it's a tennis match, which we're planning at the moment, which is really exciting. It's going to be a battle of the sexes between Kyrgios and Sabalenka. So stay tuned for that. It's at the Coca-Cola Arena. And again, we see our audience from Asia flying in, and we're going to build, the hospitality around that, have, great chefs and so on. So that's what we're seeing.
So maybe that's to link those 2 things together. In our community here, influence is huge. If you get the right influence, the right influencers, the right branding, you can change people, you can drive things, you can get people to go, and you can get things adopted, and then you see them everywhere. How Tatler sees it, is this about influence, or is this simply about providing information to things consumers have already decided that they want?
I think it's a bit of both. I think people don't necessarily know what they want until you show it to them.
Oh my God, that's like the great PR question right there. Sorry, can I answer it? So Asia, obviously, again, multi-regional, many different types of influences, many different types of media. I think what's interesting about Asia is that the media market is still incredibly strong, and people want to read content, and they want to understand what is trending, and they are heavily influenced by the Tatlers of this world. At the same time, influencer campaigns are growing in importance as well. I think in order to really make your brand pop in Asia, you have to have a holistic approach to your communications campaign. So yes, it's definitely events, it's definitely content, but it's awards as well. Again, going back to this idea of brand recognition, Sean just started the Tatler Best Awards 2 years ago, and it's been huge in Asia in terms of everybody wanting to know who has won Best Retreat, who has won Best Hotel. And you see a definite uptick in particularly the wealthier socialites and people that we work with day to day of wanting to be seen in those places. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing of, you have to kind of get in there, start working there, and start seeing the dividends slowly eke out.
One of the things I want just to mention on that is the readiness of the Middle Eastern properties, hotel, brands, location, destination to receive the Asian travelers, right? Who are very much into experimental, something new, digitalization, look into the brands. What we do as brands, and you see that as well, everyone has not one brand, everyone has multitude of brands. We have 30 brands to offer, so if it comes to different generations, different needs, almost all the big brands, we have at least 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 30 different brands who are matching the needs of the different clients who are coming. And we see the change in customer belief and what they want to experimental. We have from the 2-star economy to 6 stars, we have all kind of brands like the other brands. So we're ready from that perspective. And if you talk about the Formula One in Singapore, look here, we have now 3 and 4 Formula One races in the Middle East coming, and it's coming more and more. And we see the attraction of these giga and mega events which are happening in this part of the world. There is still some funds available for funding, for sponsoring, etc. And you see these move into countries. Saudi Arabia is a big thing. Doha, Qatar is a big thing. The UAE since many, many years. And we see the Asian interest in these events, which are here, becomes regionally, but even then global. So ready for the Asian tourists to come.
So maybe just to tie together the beginning of yesterday with our focus in this summit on Africa, you're also building out in Africa. How does that work for you, especially if you're maybe opening in more interesting countries in Africa? Does your brand loyalty drive that traffic into Africa for you, or are you having to rethink that when it might be somewhere which people are less familiar with from your core markets?
No, I think every brand, a big brand, is focusing on having a very strong loyalty program, right? Is it hospitality or any other one, right? The brand mover is the loyalty, and what do you offer? How people can earn and burn their points. If we offer and we look and venturing into Africa, if we tell to our customer base, we open a new destination or a partnership with companies who are in another part of the world and go into a jungle in Africa, go into some resorts in Africa which they don't know, the Asian are going because they follow the brands. They follow really the brands that they know. The trust factor that you mentioned is very important. If you can deliver that on a consistent base, and that's why this Germanic Chinese is working well, the German precision and Chinese volume, it works very well.
And I would add, it's not even about the points so much in the ultra high net worth world. It's a sense of community and belonging. So, you know, the hashtag I'm unjunkie, all of the ladies in Hong Kong and Singapore, they wear their T-shirts to the gym, right? And they're billionaires. They don't need to be in a loyalty program. But it's a flex of, you know, I am and I'm unjunkie. So I always use that as an example of a fantastic loyalty scheme.
Yeah, you can't underestimate the power of good merch, that's for sure.
Merch all the way.
I think the Carlisle and the Sporty and Rich collab was another one. Like, people just like obsess about stuff like that. Merch is important.
So, as we're coming towards our time, 2 questions for you. Where do you see the Asian traveler, and you can pick whichever Asia as we've disaggregated it, where do you see them growing here in our region, within the Gulf? And 2, what is the one lesson everybody in this room should avoid as we're driving towards bringing that Asian market to the Gulf? Sean?
What we should avoid.
What we should avoid. Like, what is the pitfall that you foresee and we need to avoid as we continue to grow in the Asian market and bring those people into our region?
Well, I think what Dominique said earlier is, I don't think we want to eat Asian food all the time. But I think now and again, it's sort of like, you know, maybe every other day you want a little recharge or something of your national cuisine. You might want a kind of a bowl of noodles or something. But yeah, I mean, don't feed them Asian food all the time. What was the other question?
I've forgotten the first question, but yeah, halas, we'll move on to Dominique and come back.
You ask what is the market that from the Asia which you should focus on, right? I think the Indian market for this part of the world is one of the biggest one, right? It's very close to their destination, and you see the amount of people coming from that part of the world is tremendous here. So this is for the Middle East. If you talk about the first, is India definitely, and you see the success of all the Indians coming here. It's tremendous. What you should avoid, I think, you know, the Asian travelers, even the African travelers, are looking for experimental things. So to serve just Chinese food to a Chinese group, no, they don't want that. They want some really truth, authenticity when it comes to discovering the different parts of the Middle East. And we have all rich culture, rich heritage in this part of the world. So just offer it as most authentic and best you can do. And I feel the clients go and come back again.
Southeast Asia, which is where I work, is a huge market that knows nothing about your region, and there's so much money there, and they're so sophisticated. And I think this kind of leads into what you shouldn't do. Going back again, Asian travelers, one of the most sophisticated people that you can cater to. So be full of pride of your destination, highlight your destination in all of the ways that you might think is a little bit kind of over the top, because that's what Asian audience is looking for. So don't dumb down your product. Don't come and meet them halfway. Sure, have some noodles at breakfast, but beyond that, let them experience the best of where you're from, and go for Southeast Asia. We don't know any of your brands at all. I've been walking around the show floor. I don't know any of the brands out here, and I work in the industry. So there's enormous potential for the right kind of player to come in and grab that market by the throat.
I think Indonesia and Malaysia, I think keep an eye on Indonesia especially. It's a big country. They're predominantly Muslim. They have a lot of the same values. I mean, they're very, very sophisticated. Some of the most mind-blowing properties on earth are in Indonesia, actually. So their standards of hospitality are sky high. So I would say that's a very interesting connection. and Malaysia as well. Malaysia, Indonesia, coming to this part of the world, it's a big one.
And yeah, you're true. Maybe I should mention that there's religious travel. And in this part of the world, if you go to Makkah, Medina, you have a huge amount of Southeast Asian and Asian going there to do their pilgrimage. So it's a really big business. And the recommendation from every developer is please open a hotel in Medina and Makkah because there's such a huge demand as well from Southeast Asia.
Thank you very much, Sean, Dominique,
Thank you.
Siegfried.
Thank you, Ben.
Hopefully this gave you a little bit more of the nuances of Asia. I definitely think this is something we're going to be seeing a lot more of as Europe declines, Asia goes up. It's a brave new world. Thank you so much again. Please join me in thanking our panel.